Let's change it up again. Let's do something we haven't done for a while. How about some Gloomhaven extras? So we've been painting Gloomhaven pretty steadily, trying to keep up with the characters. I still have a couple more to do that we've unlocked. I figured, you know, it'd be nice to do another video for some extras because we've been playing this game for quite some time, and during that time we've been using some of the doors I've created, we've been using the water texture tiles that I created, we've been using the pillars, we've been using the altars, you know, and it definitely adds to the game. It's not so flat and two-dimensional. So, you know, we've got these little tiles, and this one's actually, see, it's got two things on either side. Right, we've got totem poles. That's supposed to be a totem pole, and then it's just more or less like an ice block. You know, just a difficult terrain or obstacle. All right, so today we're gonna make our little ice block obstacles. How we're gonna do that? We've got some polystyrene, some thicker stuff, which I've already trimmed down, you know, into smaller pieces. You know, then we're just gonna trace out these little things on some foam board, right, and use our Proxon table right over here, right, to cut all this up and glue it together, Mod Podge it, and then lay out some paint. And on top of that, go back to some of the old water texture acrylic from Vallejo, like you've seen in some of the other videos. We did a video on doing water tiles. It turned out really good. And then there was even adding some to bases for Deep Madness. That turned out really well too. So now we're gonna try and make some ice blocks with it and see how that goes with maybe a little bit of paint. So let's start cracking at it. So first things first, in order to make this little guy, we need to cut some, and I made this quick just as a test run. You know, and I didn't even Mod Podge the bottom of it to protect the foam there. So we're gonna make sure we do everything like vanilla. The first thing we need to do is we need to trace out some of this on some foam board. Now I've already cut some strips here at the right width. So it's just a matter of, well, actually maybe not quite the width. I'm gonna have to measure that again. But either way, all we have to do is trace them out. Now I didn't even count to see how many I need. I find that you can't just make 3 or 4 and figure that's enough. They specifically made so many of these items, to the most part, I find, for Gloomhaven, because there may be at times you actually use them all. The one thing I find that if anything we're going to run out of, it's bases for the monsters to hold them sometimes, which we did end up purchasing the expansion to Gloomhaven that came out some time ago. You know, so we had some extra bases in there, which was great, so we used those. And we haven't even unlocked the ability to continue the storylines that are in the new book for the new expansion yet. But the extra bases definitely do come in handy. They also gave us extra sleeves, but we've been finding that we've been using the Gloomhaven Helper application, and it works great to keep track of at least your monsters and not have to have so much stuff going on the table. It really kind of minimizes and you have more room for other things, which is kind of nice. So one thing, if we just want to make this quick, is we could just use scissors. Because this stuff's pretty thin. Right? And it's not too bad. For what folds, you can always trim it if you need to after. But I think I'm going to run this through the Proxxon table for a second first. Now, just to make things a little simpler, I'm going to use the Proxxon table here, and I'm thinking that I could probably get the right angle just like this. Well, maybe not. It's worth a shot. But if anything, I can at least do this. So, just at least get them broke apart here. There we go. Now, I probably could just sit here and do this, but I find if I freehand with this, see, it's hard to get that straight line. A cross-cut sled here, maybe. Put it on an angle. Let's try that. Not bad. That actually turned out pretty good. So let's finish up the rest of these and keep moving. So I think that's better because you can see the edges are nice and crisp. Where you do the one with the scissors and you get folds because the scissor will fold it so much. So let's get some straight cuts, is a little nicer. Alright, so no sense in watching me do all of these. I'll finish those off and we'll go from there. Alright, so there we have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's number 6. We need 6 of them to look kind of like this. So now our next step is to get a little bit of glue and these things, and we're going to make them into little shapes like that. So I've got this piece as a guide because that's what I made this one out of for size. I'll make some more. We need to make 5 more of these. We're going to make those on the Proxxon cutter. So let's head back over there. So now on the Proxxon table, we need to take these things now and turn them into little pieces that we can carve. So I'm going to use this one as a guide to see how big I went. So we're going to set our fence here to make them all about that same size. I'm going to take this piece, carve some more. We're going to have to turn our heat up a little bit here, it's a little thicker. And pass that on through. Pass another one on through here. Now this is just regular polystyrene you can get at like Home Depot or wherever, right, that you usually use for insulating your walls. You can get it like 2 inches or 3 inches or even up to 4 inches thick, and then you can carve them however way you want. Now, made that one. Now let's see what that is in retrospect to height here. Yeah, pretty good. All right, so I turned the light up because it wasn't bright. Now we're gonna turn this back down just a little bit. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep one side flat because that's the side that we're gonna glue, and a little bit flat on the top. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna just randomly cut stuff off. Now you wanna try and not let your foam burn. If you see it stuck like that, shut it off, pull it out of there. Right, because the white smoke's not really toxic, but if it goes black, it will be. After all, this is start foam. Now there is all kinds of other ways you could do this. Like you could use scissors. You can use, you know, just a hand foam cutter if you wanted to. You don't want them all to be identical either. You want to have a bit of character. I think that's not bad for that one. I don't want to have too much for flat sides though, so there we go. You can even just do a little quick in and out, just to take that flat side out of there. There we go. Thing is, you don't want it to look like stone. You know, that's where you take some like tin foil and you rubble it all around on there, or you know, you rough it up to make it look like stone. You know, when you take ice shards off it, you know, it shatters and it leaves straight edges, right? So as long as you can take your sides and kind of blend them into other little straight cuts, like so, then it's gonna look fine. Let's get on to the next one. Now the next step is obviously some tacky glue. Now you could use a glue gun, but I find that a glue gun, sometimes you don't get it to sit right flat, you know, or you end up melting the foam, right? So in this case, I find you get a better, tighter, you know, fit. And yeah, okay, you have to wait a little bit for your glue to dry, but the end result is better. So let's just put a little bit of tacky glue. Don't need much. Squish it down. Just hold it there for a second. Just like so. You can also, if you wanted to, you could put a pin through it just to hold it nice and tight. But the last one I didn't have to do that, so I'm not going to bother here either. So put a little bit on that one. There's also kind of this, your own little satisfaction when you create stuff like this for a game that you and a bunch of friends are playing, and it just adds an extra element of three-dimensional fun to it. You know, it just it's awesome. So I'll give them another little push down here. So we'll have to wait for those to dry. Then the next step, black paint and Mod Podge glue and seal the whole thing. So that way it protects it, toughens it up, and it gives you a black primer basically to work from, which works good for the ice too, to work up from something dark up to something lighter. Alright, so that's all done. Now it's time for some Mod Podge. Now this is a trick I learned from Black Magic Craft. Right, you take black paint and mix it with Mod Podge glue. Right, and then this creates basically a base and a sealer all together at once. So it protects and gives you your base color, and what's great is the black also tells you that you've completely covered it. If it was clear, it'd be hard to tell. You might still have an exposed spot. This way it's indefinitely easy to tell that everything is coated. So this is going to make them good and strong, very resilient. Doesn't take long to do. And I have a little desk fan I usually just put in front of and dry it fairly quickly. So now this is just Craft Smart cheap acrylic paint, a pool blue. Right, instead of using my more expensive stuff, you know, you can get this at places like Michael's, fairly cheap. And that's going to coat all around the bases. Now with that being done, I'm going to take some more Craft Smart paint, and this is just a darker blue. Dark blue, there we go. And I'm going to do all of the actual ice chunks in that dark blue to start and give it that deep, rich base color. Now that that's dry, we're going to go back and we're going to use the pool blue again. Gonna just do a little bit of highlighting, bring up some of the edges. Just like that. I'm not going too crazy, it's pretty much a dry brush. But I'm going a little more than I would if it was a really dry. I just kind of want a little bit of that blue, and then we're going to use another paint called Ice Storm and some white on top of that to really highlight the edges. But I'm only going to do that after we get our glossy finish on. So the next thing I try is a little bit of black, you know, just on top. Now when you look at the little cut out ones, they're kind of black on top. And it's to simulate like as if you're looking down into like clear ice. And you can see straight through and it's dark, you know, or whatever, because it's so far to the other side or whatever, right? So I try to simulate that, and I try to add a little bit of that in on the edges here as well. But I figured for consistency, congruency, and ability to blend, I figured, you know what, I'm going to try something else. This doesn't look too bad, and even if I just do the one or two like that, it'll be okay anyway once I put the other stuff on, because it'll show some individuality. But I'm tossing the brush down, and I'm going to grab some Nuln oil. I'm going to pour that into my airbrush, and we're going to give that a whirl. Now it's kind of funny here too when I start painting. You can see how it just bam, just makes that so much darker, and the highlights still pop, which that's exactly what I want, right? Because I want that to show through like that once I put that clear water effect on top. So I need some of that more deep and dark to kind of show through. There's those just foam things, and just my airbrush blows them around everywhere. It's pretty heavy ice blocks there. So that pretty much gets a good base down now. Yeah. Now it's time to put the water texture on. Now, when we did water before, we used a little spreader and we purposely just dabbed it on to create ripples as if there was water. Now I'm actually trying to get it on as smooth as I can with this paintbrush, because it's more like a glass the way ice is, right? So you just want it to have that kind of clear transparency, you know, maybe with a little bit of the added blue just to say that it's water that's been frozen, right? But you don't want to have ripples, right? Because it's supposed to be in a state of being frozen in a block that's been, you know, just broken off and just sitting there on the ground. So this actually takes a few layers. Right now I'm just going to put first layer on real quick. Bing, bang, boom. Here we go. We'll be done here in a second. Now that layer's had some time to dry, we're going to take this toxic mist, which is just a not quite white, and with a makeup brush and very, very dry, I'm going to go over them and just bring out and highlight the ridges and the edges before I do the next layer of water texture. Kind of like trapping that between the layers of little, like layers of transparency or glass. So now you can see how that just kind of underneath it, you know, you can see it through. It looks pretty cool. So now I didn't show this, but this is just a matte white now, and I'm going really dry because I really just want the very edges to kind of stand out a bit. It's that final step now. Look at that. Beautiful. Like, these things are going to look fantastic. And just think, you know, what we started out with, this was just chunks of foam. And this is what it looks like now. So use your own imagination. You can cut them and shape them however way you want, right? But I think that's going to look pretty cool when it comes down to it. That's going to be awesome. So here we are in all their glory, kind of set up on a small map. I think that looks pretty sweet. It kind of gives me an idea, I think, for my next episode, but you'll have to watch that when that comes out. It'll be probably just a short one. I'm going to add to these things, but you know, as far as for like a big chunk of ice or a big chunk of like our big ice pillar sitting there on the board, I think those look pretty slick. So I hope you like what you watch. You know, if you do, smash that like button, and please subscribe, like, comment, do all the usual. You know, I want to keep making these videos. I really enjoy it. I hope you guys do too. Right? And until the next time, remember, he's not dead. He's loot.